Welcome back to the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show. Chicken expert and author Lisa Steele moments away. But first, Simple Grow has a product. It's 100% worm castings, and it will feed your soil, which feeds your plants.
Are you worrying about your plant growth? Provide your plants with what they need to grow to their potential. Simple Grow offers 100% organic worm castings. That's at simplegrow.com. Unlike other worm casting products, when you order from Simple Grow, you are getting 100% worm castings.
That's it, 100%. Full bag.
Not filler plus castings. Promote ideal soil structure and aeration with Simple Grow's all-natural and odor-free worm castings. There's only one ingredient, worm castings. So you don't have to worry about any chemicals or additives that will seep into your food. And it doesn't smell like other fertilizers. It's good for indoor, outdoor use. You can buy it by the bag, bundle, ton, or truckload. Check out more with simplegrow.com. 100% worm castings and what they can do to your plants.
Absolutely. Well, Holly, let's go to the Proclamation Hotline brought to you by Proclamation Goods and bring in our guest for this week.
Fifth-generation chicken keeper and expert, Lisa Steele is well recognized as the creative force behind Fresh Eggs Daily, the most popular destination for natural poultry keeping advice on the internet and one of the most influential players in the backyard chicken keeping community. She's dubbed Queen of the Coop by the media. Lisa has been dishing out advice on raising chickens, ducks, and geese naturally via her blog and social media platform Fresh Eggs Daily for more than a decade. Welcome to the program, Lisa.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, we thank you for taking time out of your day to not only educate Holly and myself, but all of our listeners. And we're going to learn some stuff here because Holly and I are not chicken experts, and we appreciate the time that you're going to offer us.
Yeah, chicken keeping has gotten super popular, especially in the last 2 years. But really over the last decade, so many people are getting into chicken keeping. So it's a great topic.
Fantastic. So with that being said, what was the biggest surprise that people have or you have had about raising chickens?
I think what surprises people most is how pet-like they are. You know, people get them thinking they're going to get fresh eggs and it's going to be great. You know, they have a garden, they get vegetables from the garden, they'll get some eggs from their chickens. And then once you get them, you realize that they all have their own little personality and different breeds have different personalities. And I think people are actually surprised that they become pets very quickly.
Well, they have that's where the term pecking order comes from. There is a hierarchy in a herd of chickens. Am I correct on this?
Yes, they take it very seriously. Their spot it means they get the best treats. They get to pick where they want to sleep at night. So yeah, it's a real thing.
Well, I guess the question would be, what are 2 reasons why you would recommend raising chickens? And then on the other hand, what are 2 reasons why you would say to somebody, maybe chickens aren't for you?
Yeah, great questions. Obviously, fresh eggs is the number one reason to raise chickens. But especially as gardeners, chickens produce a lot of manure. And chicken manure is really great for the garden. It's high in nitrogen. It's great for composting. So I think if people aren't taking advantage of that aspect of chicken keeping, they're really missing out because that is another sort of added free benefit. So those would be 2 reasons to keep chickens. I guess a reason not to, people don't realize maybe that eggs are seasonal. Chickens don't lay every day all year round like clockwork, and they also don't lay their whole life. So they might only lay well for, say, 2 or 3 years. You know, and then they start to drop down a little in production. But we have chickens that are 10 and 11 years old. So you have to be prepared to sort of run a chicken retirement home, I guess you should call it, for them. I think a lot of people aren't ready for that. And then keeping them safe from predators is probably the biggest challenge. No matter where you live, there's something that wants to eat your chickens. So it's kind of like a constant battle, and it can be kind of stressful at times.
Now I'm going to, I know enough about chickens to get me in trouble here. There are certain breeds that do better in certain climates. So you just don't want to go down to the farm store. And that's about this time of year when people go, oh, look, baby chickens, let's get 4. And they have no idea what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, you know, some feed stores and farm stores are super responsible and get breeds that are good for the area that they're in. And they've done a little research, and others just kind of pick whatever. And it's like going into a candy store and, you know, I'll take 2 of those and 2 of those. So it really is a good idea. Or if you live in a climate that's moderate, like middle of the country, you probably are going to be okay with any breeds. If you live where it's cold, like you live and where I live, doing some research into some cold hardy breeds is a good idea. Rhode Island Reds, Buckeyes, anything in the Orpington family, Brahmas, the bigger girl, the fuller bodied girls, I guess you'd say. But if you live in the South where it gets hot, chickens do not do well in the heat. So you really want to do some research into breeds that are going to do well in warm climates. And those tend to be the Mediterranean breeds. They're smaller, sleeker, have big combs. Those combs are what lets the heat out of their body. They act like radiators. So a little research is a good idea.
Well, and not every municipality allows chickens and or allows all the chickens that you get. Male, they would only allow females. You can't have roosters. There's a whole lot of it's not just let's go get it and we'll deal with it later. There's some stuff you gotta prepare for this.
Yeah, and it's a good idea to find out. Talk to your town, call the town office, find out how many chickens you can have. Like you said, sometimes you're not allowed a rooster because it is sort of a big time commitment and expense just to turn around and find out that you weren't allowed to have chickens after all.
Yeah, that can definitely be frustrating. So tell us about your newest book, the Fresh Eggs Daily Cookbook. What can our listeners expect? It sounds like it's a spin-off or a companion book to the Fresh Eggs Daily book.
Yeah, I've written a couple of books on raising chickens and one on raising ducks. And I kind of had covered everything to do with their health and their care and what chickens eat and all that kind of stuff. And I thought that the next natural progression would be to write a cookbook to kind of help people find new recipes with what to do with all their eggs. I've encouraged a lot of people to raise chickens over the years, and they have a lot of eggs now. So it was a lot of fun to come up with recipes for breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert, sweet, savory, just a wide variety of very egg-centric recipes.
And eggs are not, many people, eggs for breakfast. Eggs can be for many dishes for any time of the day.
Yes, and that's what I really tried to put forth in this book. I mean, I personally love breakfast for dinner. So, scrambled eggs and toast and bacon or an omelet or what have you. But yeah, absolutely. I don't know how eggs first started just sort of being a breakfast food, but they really are great for any time of day, especially if you're trying to cut back a little on red meat. If you know someone who's a vegetarian, and they're just so versatile. There's so much that you can do with an egg.
Definitely. And they also are really good for people who have digestive issues, and they're a safe food for that. So they are versatile and something that anybody can typically enjoy. So we are talking with Lisa Steele. She is the expert at fresheggsdaily.com, an author. So what are some tips for beginners? You had mentioned, researching your breed, but other than that, you're excited. You've done some research. You're ready to get your chickens. What are some let's keep this in mind type tips?
I think the biggest thing is where they're going to live once they get outside. Most people start with baby chicks, so they're in your house, they're under a heat lamp. You've got them in a laundry room or a mudroom or garage or something like that, keeping an eye on them, making sure that they're warm enough and they have enough food. And then after about 8 weeks or 10 weeks, they're going to be going outside. So having your coop ready, whether you turn a playhouse or a shed into a coop, or you build one, or you buy a kit, or however you get your structure that they're going to live in with an attached pen, so they are outside, they're safe from predators. I mean, honestly, really the only hard thing about raising chickens is keeping things from eating them. Honestly, other than that, it's fairly easy. You feed them, you give them water, you collect the eggs, put them to bed at night. It's just setting up a routine.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I guess the question should be, what is a good number of chickens to start with? I know that if you have one, it gets depressed, and that's not a joke. They get depressed and they don't do egg laying. So what is a good starter number in your flock, I guess would be the question.
That's a good question. And yes, they are flock animals and they're not going to be happy, one chicken by itself. And plus, if something happens to that chicken, or if you get two and something happens to the one chicken. So I would say a minimum of three, but most areas, even urban or suburban areas that have started to allow chickens, they allow five or six. So I would say five or six is a nice starter size. And then depending if that's all that you're allowed to have, that might be the extent of it. Or, if you live out in a little more rural area, you're going to have, 12, 24, 176, they just, the flock just keeps growing and growing.
So some people, when you go into something new, whether it be cohabitating or having a child or getting a pet, you might find some things are overrated, not everybody's going to find a cat that wants to sleep in a cat bed. Is there anything where, with chickens, like there's general advice that is extremely overrated, or maybe something you would want to wait on if people were, making purchases for their chickens?
Yes, that's very true. And because it has become so popular now, the stores and online are flooded with all sorts of things for chickens. And I mean, really, I buy enamelware trays and roasting pans and things like that secondhand, and I use those for feed and water. I mean, I don't get super fancy. People freak out if the chicken feed gets on the ground. The chickens don't care. They'll eat it right off the ground. People, they ask how often I clean my coop, or how often, even worse, I rake out their pen, which is never. Everything just disintegrates and turns into dirt. The poop and the feathers and the leaves, and it just all, turns back to dirt, and they scratch around in it and they're happy. So I think people get crazy with the cleaning, and you'll make yourself nuts because they are livestock. And, anyone who's had animals and had a barn, that it's just not going to be as clean as your house, and the animals, for the most part, they don't care. They live outside and they scratch in the dirt. And I think people burn out that way if they just try to keep everything so clean and that, because you're just going to burn out with it. You need to just pace yourself, realize that they are outdoor animals and they eat worms and slugs and bugs and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Absolutely. A very different mindset from an urban new chicken person or owner than a farmer who's had chickens and cattle and hogs, and there's two separate worlds there. And we always encourage people, if they can't have chickens because of their situation, they should support their local farmers market and buy free-range eggs from their farmers market, because there is a tremendous difference between the store-bought eggs and the eggs that you get from either your own chicken or chickens that are local. And how, am I correct? It's night and day difference?
Oh, it definitely is. You could definitely tell. Yeah, a farmer's market, or even just drive around your neighborhood and look for some fresh egg signs or something like that, because so many people have chickens now. But yes, you absolutely can tell the difference. The fresh eggs, the yolks are going to be bright orange, and the egg is just going to taste fresh.
And they're going to be different colors.
It's going to be different. Yes, different colors. And the eggs themselves, they can be blue and green and tan and pink and whatever, which is fun. All the same nutrition inside, but the nutrition of an egg laid by a chicken that's walking around a field or a yard or a pasture all day, eating all kinds of things, grains and flowers and herbs and all that, is just going to taste so much better, be far more nutritious, and they're going to be fresher. The store-bought eggs are never going to be as fresh as what you can get locally. And that means that when you crack your egg in the pan, the white is not going to spread all over the place. It's just going to kind of stay where it belongs. As the egg gets old, the protein bonds break down and everything just gets really watery.
For a fun fact, what is about the average from hatch to grocery store? How much time is elapsed there normally?
Oh, fun fact. I do check every once in a while just because, I'm that person. I would say the average egg on the supermarket shelf is probably 4 to 6 weeks old, unless you happen to just catch it when they've restocked. Mm-hmm. Probably 4 to 6 weeks old by the time you even pick it up and put it in your cart.
That's just amazing. Well, we've really enjoyed having you on the show. How can our listeners find out more about your new book, your previous books, all of your great information?
Absolutely, yes. Super easy. FreshEggsDaily.com is my blog. You can find me at Fresh Eggs Daily on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest. My books are all on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, local library, local bookstore, pretty much anywhere books are sold. Yeah, if anybody has any interest in, raising chickens or ducks or eating eggs.
Well, Lisa, we greatly appreciate that. All the information you've educated Holly and myself, and I know you've educated our listeners across the country. We thank you for that.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're absolutely welcome.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.